Hello and welcome again to the Rider Review. This is Eric Carruth Rider, and this week we're going to take a look at the 1992 movie A League of Their Own. It is directed by Penny Marshall, and the script was written by Lowell Ganz and Bablu Mendel. It is a comedy drama that runs 2 hours and 8 minutes long, and some of the stars of the movie include Tom Hanks, Geena Davis, Rosie O'Donnell, Madonna, Lori Petty, Jon Lovitz, David Strathairn, and Gary Marshall. We start off in the opening scenes in the present as Dottie Henson attends the opening of the new All-American Girls Professional Baseball League exhibit at the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, New York, and is reunited with former teammates, which eventually starts the story, taking us back to the year 1943. World War II tries to shut down Major League Baseball, as most of the ball players are going overseas to take down Hitler and his regime. And owner of the Chicago Cubs, Walter Harvey, played by Gary Marshall, finds ways to make money by sponsoring a women's league. Ira Lowenstein, played by David Strathairn, is put in charge, and Ernie Capadino, played by Jon Lovitz, is on the prowl to gather eligible female ball players. Capadino first ventures to rural Oregon and is impressed by catcher Dottie Henson, played by Geena Davis, who's also a very good hitter as well. Capadino definitely wants her on his team, but she's reluctant because she wants to stay on the farm while her husband is off to war. But her eager sister, Kit Keller, played by Lori Petty, is determined to go as a way to break away from being overshadowed by her older sister Dottie. Capadino then goes off to Fort Collins, Colorado, and is impressed by switch hitter Marla Hooch, played by Megan Cavanagh, but he doesn't want her on because of her lack of beauty and her somewhat tomboyish look, but was persuaded to draft her in after Dottie and Kit would threaten to leave if they don't draft Marla to the team. In Chicago, they are joined by other ball players, including center fielder May All-the-Way Mortabito, played by Madonna, and her friend Doris Murphy, who plays third base, played by Rosie O'Donnell, who are friends from New York. We also have the introverted right fielder Evelyn Gardner, played by Biddy Schramm, an illiterate but shy left fielder Shirley Baker, played by Ann Cusack, and pitcher Ellen Sue Gotlander, played by Freddie Simpson. Along with 8 others, they form a team called the Rockford Peaches, and they were under the management of former Chicago Cubs slugger Jimmy Dugan, played by Tom Hanks, who lost his career due to alcoholism. Dugan at first refuses to commit to his managerial initiative, so that leads Dottie to fill in his duties until he starts to show some respect for the team, the players, and to himself. The league has little interest at first, as attendance was pretty poor, but when a photographer for Life magazine makes a visit to their game, Lowenstein wants them to do something exceedingly groundbreaking. Dottie catches a fly ball while doing the splits. The photo itself was a success, and soon more people started attending to see these ladies play baseball, and they seem to do pretty well, just as good as their male counterparts, guys like Bob Feller, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, you name it. But of course, all good things come to a little bit of a hiccup, as a sibling rivalry once again ensues between Dottie and Kit, which leads to Dottie threatening to quit the team, But instead, Lowenstein decides that in order to break off this sibling rivalry, he decides to trade Kit to the Racine Bells, and in order to just let Dottie stay on the team. Meanwhile, Marla eventually gets married to Nelson, so she eventually leaves and is replaced by another person to fill in for second base. Designated hitter Betty Spaghetti Horn, played by Tracy Reiner, gets news that her husband was killed in the Pacific, so eventually she also departs from the team. Meanwhile, news comes around that Dottie's husband was honorably discharged after being wounded in Italy, so this eventually leads to her wanting to go back to Oregon to look after her husband and the farm. So then the team eventually proceeds without Dottie, and the Peaches eventually end up taking on Kit's team, the Racine Bells, in a World Series championship. In the game itself, the Bells are ahead 3-1 in the series, and then the Peaches eventually win 2 straight games, leading to the inaugural climactic Game 7. Dottie eventually rejoins the team, with Racine leading 1-0 going into the 9th inning, and then Dottie hits a single, driving in 2 runs. At the bottom of the 9th, Kit eventually comes up to the plate and hits a line drive to left center and slides into home plate, knocking the ball out of Dottie's hands and scoring the winning run, which leads to Racine winning the game and the World Series by a score of 3-2 to take the game to 7 games. The sellout crowd continues to convince Harvey to give Lowenstein owner support as the team went on. The baseball team for women went on from 1943 until it finally closed down in 1954. The sisters eventually settle their differences as Dottie goes back to raise their family. Back in present day, Dottie is joined by May, Doris, and other ball players, including her sister Kit, who they haven't seen each other in many years. Of course, you know, some of the characters did not come to see the Hall of Fame because they passed on, like Evelyn, Jimmy, Bob, and eventually they sing their song and they pose for a group photo. What did I think of this movie? Even though Tom Hanks's classic line, "There's no crying in baseball," has been going on for over 22 years, so to speak, you just can't help shedding tears of great joy. I mean, I have to say, it'll really leave you awestruck because this was a really good movie, and it will definitely leave your heart fluttering once the credits roll. The casting was absolutely phenomenal. The chemistry and the exchanges in dialogue within each character was absolutely fanatical, and you know, it was also a very inspiring tale in that, you know, women are just as adept and as savvy at sports as their male counterparts, and it was actually quite refreshing to see that, knowing that this movie was set in 1943, where women's career choices and options were very limited. At least they had a chance to shine and show them what they're made of. So that's a really inspiring tale. And the ensemble actually excels quite nicely in the respected role, and it shows that girls truly know their baseball as much as the guys do. Tom Hanks definitely shines in one of his last funny roles before starting to play more serious roles, like in Philadelphia, Forrest Gump, Apollo 13, amongst others. You know, back in the 80s and 90s, you know, Tom Hanks was like in a lot more light-hearted stuff, like Joe versus the Volcano, Turner and Hooch, and Big, among many others, Splash. Those were all pretty much light-hearted comedies and stuff. By the time the 90s came around, he decided to open a new chapter in his life by making more mainstream Oscar-winning type films. And he was quite funny in this role, and I can tolerate the scene where he whizzes in front of the girls. It was great that they kept the story real from Geena Davis's performance, and the sibling rivalry between Dottie and Lori Petty's character Kit was very, very believable. I mean, I come from a family too of brothers and sisters. I am the second oldest sibling, and we know that sibling rivalry has been an important part of my life. I mean, I've had brothers, and we've had our share of fights and arguments, but we always try our best to work things out. In this movie, the rivalry between Dottie and Kit were as real as they come, and I can understand Kit's insecurity, because, you know, she's trying to outdo her sister, and younger sisters and younger siblings have struggled to fight out of the shadows as their older siblings. So I thought they also turned in great performances. The only two characters that I didn't find as impressive were the performances from Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell. Now, don't get me wrong, they were okay. I mean, Madonna actually played an actual role that I enjoyed, as she kind of took a backseat from playing these leading role stuff to playing a more supporting role, and I thought she was actually quite effective. And this is one of her better roles, but I still did not find her that impressive. Same could also be said for Rosie O'Donnell as Doris Murphy, and it's not because, like I said, they did bad, but it's because they were already, you know, like, successful celebrities, and I think they only got casted because of their status as celebrities. Okay, for those who love sports movies and underdog stories, well then this movie is definitely for you. And the real underdogs was actually the entire baseball league for the women, because they were, you know, like, struggling to be noticed, and it took a while for the media to take notice. And if you are also more into, like, historical war drama, well, the stories that were told about these soldiers fighting in the war are also aforementioned. And you can feel the soldiers' wives and their concerns and the grief that was, like, secretly hidden within the female characters, particularly Dottie's. You know, when she hasn't heard that about her husband and what's going on with him. We feel the grief when Betty Spaghetti gets the news that her husband died in the war. We feel their pain and their anguish, and we all hope that their husbands can make it home, you know, from this dangerous war that they are in. Maybe we might even see some guilt within the ball players, the female ball players, like, while we're out scoring hitting home runs and trying to win games, their husbands are off in Europe trying to take down Hitler and his regime, and maybe they might feel a little guilty about it, that the only thing they're getting are bruises and scratches from playing in the baseball diamond, while they're out being wounded or potentially killed. Well, and that's kind of like a natural thing. On the technical side, the sets, the props, the costumes were definitely fit for the period, and the colloquial period language is what you would expect for a 1940s era film. The music too is also apropos to the time period that the movie was set in, and it shows that the crew was definitely doing their homework in the making of this movie. Everything you want it to be, the humor, the nostalgia, the sports, the inspiration, this one will surely hit a home run. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.